In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro addresses multiple pressing issues, ranging from the current political climate in the United States to international relations, particularly focusing on Iran and its nuclear ambitions. He emphasizes the importance of holding individuals accountable for their actions, regardless of their political affiliations, and critiques the tendency to justify bad behavior through a lens of whataboutism. Shapiro begins by discussing a troubling trend in American politics, where one side's misdeeds are used to justify similar actions by the opposing side. He refers to this as a bizarre and terrible cycle, which he believes undermines moral standards. He distinguishes between pointing out double standards and engaging in whataboutism, the latter being a tactic where one deflects criticism by pointing to the wrongdoings of others instead of taking responsibility. This cycle, he argues, leads to a degradation of societal norms and trust. The conversation shifts to a specific incident involving Shiloh Hendrix, a woman who was filmed using a racial slur against a 5-year-old boy. Shapiro condemns her actions, asserting that calling a child the N-word is unequivocally wrong. He notes that while the incident sparked outrage and calls for accountability, Hendrix subsequently raised over $500,000 through crowdfunding, which he views as problematic. He draws parallels to the case of Carmelo Anthony, a teenager accused of murder who also received significant financial support. Shapiro argues that these cases illustrate a troubling trend where bad behavior is rewarded, and he warns against justifying one person's misdeeds by referencing another's. Shapiro critiques the media's handling of these incidents, suggesting that they often apply double standards based on the race or political affiliation of the individuals involved. He believes that while it is essential to call out bad behavior, it is equally important to avoid using one instance of wrongdoing to justify another. He emphasizes that all bad actions should be condemned regardless of the context and warns against the slippery slope of moral relativism. The discussion then transitions to international relations, particularly focusing on Iran's nuclear ambitions. Shapiro highlights the dangers posed by a nuclear-armed Iran, arguing that it would not only threaten Israel, but also destabilize the entire Middle East. He references the historical context of the Iran nuclear deal, JCPOA, which he and others criticized for allowing Iran to maintain its nuclear infrastructure while failing to address its missile program and support for terrorism. Shapiro expresses concern over the Biden administration's approach to Iran, suggesting that it has emboldened the regime to pursue its nuclear goals more aggressively. He argues that the U.S. must take a firm stance against Iran, advocating for the complete dismantlement of its nuclear capabilities. He also discusses the implications of a nuclear Iran for global security, including the potential for nuclear proliferation in the region. Shapiro critiques Qatar's role as a mediator in the region, noting its connections to Iran and terrorist organizations. He argues that the U.S. should reconsider its military presence in Qatar, suggesting that it could be relocated to more reliable allies like Bahrain or the UAE. He emphasizes the need for a coherent U.S. foreign policy that prioritizes American interests and counters the influence of adversarial nations. The podcast also touches on the broader implications of U.S. foreign policy, particularly in relation to the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Shapiro argues against the notion that Israel should make concessions to Hamas as a means of achieving peace, asserting that such actions would only empower terrorist groups and undermine regional stability. He warns that a weak response to Iran and its proxies could lead to greater chaos and violence in the Middle East. Shapiro discusses the internal divisions within the Trump administration, particularly the isolationist wing that has emerged. He highlights the tensions between those advocating for a more aggressive stance against Iran and those who favor a more conciliatory approach. He expresses concern that the isolationist perspective could undermine U.S. interests and embolden adversaries. He also critiques the media's portrayal of Trump's foreign policy decisions, arguing that they often mischaracterize his intentions and actions. Shapiro believes that a strong, decisive approach is necessary to protect American interests and maintain stability in the region.